Hello, everyone. I'm Jack Fisher. Welcome to my world and welcome to my YouTube live stream. I know it's been a while since I've done one of these. In my defense, I've been kind of busy streaming other games, but I'm back. I definitely knew I wanted to do one of these on this today. This is September 1st, 2024. This is to me this is the last Sunday where I'm probably going to be streaming anything because starting next Sunday, on next Sunday, the Sunday that will pretty much set the tone for the rest of the year, it's the first Sunday of the NFL 2024 regular season. And me being a lifelong football fan, I could not be more excited. Seriously, it's one of my favorite times of the year. I mean, as much as I love comics and games. I mean, I've been watching football and following football pretty much since I was a kid. I've said this before in a few other videos, but some of my earliest memories are of watching football with my dad. We watched football and baseball together, and seriously, one of the first memories I ever have that still stands out is watching my dad jump up and yell at a TV during a football game. And you know what? Maybe that's fitting. It's kind of instilled in me a absolute love of the sport, and I don't think. It's just been part of my even long before I had a YouTube channel, long before I had like a internet presence of any kind. I loved watching football, and just this being and then now we got the era of NFL Red Zone, NFL Sunday Ticket. It's even better than it was when I was a kid because seriously, I cannot overstate how much richer being a football fan has become thanks to things like NFL Red Zone and an NFL. And now that Sunday Ticket's not locked into DirecTV anymore, it's so exciting. And I know it sounds like I overdo it, but you know what? I don't apologize for that. I love football too much. And just also for the record, I'm trying to see if some people on Discord want to join me. And someone did say they want to talk fantasy. Okay, well, I'm just going to respond to him. Sure. I just started the stream. It's on YouTube instead of Twitch. So people usually watch me on Twitch. So you got to go to YouTube for this one. So free to chime in. All right. See if anyone else from my alliance wants to join. So we'll talk a little fantasy football later on. Now, I don't do a lot of fantasy leagues. I try to keep that to a minimum because I see it can make football more frustrating to follow than than I care to admit. But before I get out too far, let me just make one thing clear. Yes, I am going to release I'm actually almost done working on a YouTube video that's going to give my predictions and picks for the 2024 season. Now, that's relevant because not to brag, but I have predicted the Super Bowl winner in 2 of the past 3 seasons. It's true. 2021, I predicted the Rams would win the Super Bowl, and they did. And 2023, I predicted that the Chiefs would win the Super Bowl, and again, they did. So yeah, I know I'm not an expert. Not even going to pretend that I'm more of an expert than the people working on ESPN or anything like that. But come on, give me some credit. I predicted 2 Super Bowl winners. Traditionally, I suck at predicting sports. Like, it doesn't matter. I've tried predicting baseball. I've been trying to predicting hockey, and I'm terrible at it. But you know what? For whatever reason, I don't know why. I'm guessing it's just blind luck, but I have predicted the last 2 Super Bowl winners. So, you know what? Maybe this stream will age a little better than most because I didn't do a stream before the season started last year, but I am doing one this year, simply because in order to keep my prediction video from getting it would be like 2 hours long if I just talked about everything I wanted to talk about. So I'm not going to give my overall predictions as to who's going to win each division. Not even going to predict who's going to win the Super Bowl in this stream. I just want to talk about what the season that awaits us, my excitement for it, and we'll talk a little fantasy football, just to get a sense of because I know that's a big deal for some people. Some people, they like fantasy football. They don't care much about the games, and you know what? That's fine. Fantasy football's great and all, but it is kind of a different. It's a different beast, to say the least. So, yeah, but before, yeah, so I will get to that. But first thing I did want to kind of share. I mean, I know I kind of already made it a little personal, talking about how much I love football and how much I love just following it. I do want to share kind of like my ritual. Here's what's going to happen for the next, I guess, 17 Sundays. Also, if you hear me pause, it's probably because I'm taking a drink. Oh yeah, that's yeah. Let me see if anyone on Discord wants to join. And doesn't look like it. So yeah, well, okay. I guess for now I will just continue on. So here's what I like to do on any Sunday, like starting next Sunday, which is again, best times of the year, start of the season. Every team's undefeated. Here's what I'd like to do. Now I live on East Coast time. So that means most of the games, they start at 1 o'clock in the afternoon for me. So here's what I do. First thing I do is I wake up early. I make sure I get my a full workout in. That's, strength, cardio. Usually I go to the gym or something like that. But then right at approximately noon, that's when I go out and I get my groceries. And when I get my groceries, I always make sure to order a large pizza. And if I don't have any beer in the fridge, I make sure I get some beer. And if I time everything just right, and if there's no major traffic mishaps, which has happened a few times, I'm not going to lie, I usually get home just as the kickoff is about to commence. So what I do is I set my pizza on my coffee table. I make sure my beer is cold, and I make sure I have that ready. Then, precisely 1 o'clock, I turn on NFL Red Zone. I turn on the sound system I have set up for my TV. And then I just lay back on my couch, drink beer, eat pizza, and watch 7 hours of commercial-free football on NFL Red Zone. And that is, to me, that is as close to heaven as I'm going to get. It's like, it makes Sunday the best day of the week, bar none. And I'm just in my element there. I mean, unless there's a serious family issue, I don't get up from my couch. I just let that be, my the center of my existence. So, and I'm going to do that for every Sunday for the whole season, right up until the first week of January before the playoffs begin. Now, that's going to take up. So as a result, that means I'm probably not going to do any Twitch streams. I'm definitely not going to be doing any YouTube live streams on Sundays. I'll probably just, if I am going to do anything, it's probably going to happen on Saturday or sometime during the week. But yeah, that is going to be what I do for starting next Sunday. But in terms of just the actual season itself, let me just cycle through a few things and let me note. Yeah, last year, I did predict this last year. I predicted that Patrick Mahomes, the Kansas City Chiefs, they were going to win the Super Bowl. Now, that is probably the prediction. Now when I made this prediction, I was already, kind of, I mean, I'm sick of, I admit, I'm sick of the Chiefs. This is not the same Chiefs from 2019 where everyone was rooting against them because they weren't the Patriots. But I'm sorry, the Chiefs have since become the Patriots. They are now essentially the NFL's evil empire. They're the team that always makes it to the AFC Championship game. They're the team that always seems to, get all the lucky breaks. They're the team that always seems to be contending when, they become spoiled. Everyone expects them to do great now. And you know what? Hats off to them. Let's not discount the fact that they are a really good team. Now, but the thing is, the reason I predicted them to win last year is because I just did not see no team has done enough to keep up with them. I mean, they are just on another level in terms of, how good Patrick Mahomes is, how good Andy Reid is as a coach. I mean, these two have essentially achieved like something that is extremely rare in the NFL. Now, if you follow the NFL like I do, like every time it's very rare for like all the best dynasties in the NFL have all happened because there's like a particular coach quarterback combination and it just works. Like for up until from like 2001 until 2018. That was Bill Belichick and Tom Brady in New England. They dominated for nearly 2 decades. But even before that, during in the '90s, you had Jimmy Johnson and Troy Aikman with the Dallas Cowboys. You could also argue that Mike Holmgren and Brett Favre with the Packers in the '90s. That was a dynasty. Even though they only won 1 Super Bowl, they were really dominant and really good during that whole time. And of course, the '80s, you had Bill Walsh and Joe Montana. Go back to the '70s. You'll have Chuck Noll and Terry Bradshaw. Even in the '60s, Bart Starr and the late great Vince Lombardi. That combination, you can count all that on one hand. But when you get that coach-quarterback combination and it works, I mean, that's hard to stop. I mean, that is very, very difficult for any team to find. And, love him or hate him, Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are that combination. They are so synchronized together. They can produce in ways that it's hard to match. And, this coming season, it's all about, is there a team good enough to take down the Chiefs? And I want to touch on that just a little. Now, I want to say there's a short answer and a long answer to that. The short answer is possibly. Yeah, there is possibly some teams that could derail the Chiefs. The long answer is, well, it depends on a lot of factors. And some of those factors are like things nobody can control, like injuries or trades, or sometimes teams just, they collapse. I mean, I'll talk a little bit about that. There are some teams I do that collapse more than most, but I will say that with respect to the Kansas City Chiefs, they are still good, and they're going to be dominant as long as Mahomes is healthy, as long as Andy Reid wants to keep coaching. The Chiefs are going to be contenders, and we can hate it all we want. We can despise the fact that they're as good as they are all we want. It's not going to change the fact that they really are that good. And it's going to be really hard for any team, either in the AFC or the NFC, to take them down. I mean, the Niners were ahead for a while. They did have a chance to win Super Bowl 58 last year, but they couldn't seal the deal. I mean, they could not stop Mahomes when they needed to stop him. So, it is it's a tough, it's tough to overcome. It's just the same way it was tough to beat the Patriots for 2 straight decades. So just keep that in mind. And, let's see if anyone, no. Just nothing related, just something on Discord. But anyway, with respect to the rest of the league, I do want to kind of spend most of this stream talking about, not just who's going to go to New Orleans this year and get into Super Bowl 59. That is certainly something I do want to save for my future video. But for now, what I want to do is I just want to focus. I'm going to bring up something on OBS. So I'm on NFL This is NFL.com, and I do want to kind of scroll through a bit here because, as you can see, they've all kind of every record's now 0-0. Every team is undefeated technically, if you want to say that. But the match is set. We've got the official kickoff is this Thursday. My video for predictions and picks is probably going to come out on Tuesday, Wednesday at the latest. And we also got that, I hate that Peacock exclusive crap. I'll talk a bit about that later. But, there's not much anyone can do about that. So let's not get into that minefield. But the first team I do want to talk about that has nothing to do with the Chiefs is the team that surprised the most people last year. And that's the Houston Texans. Now, when it comes to Houston, the reason I want to bring them up is because they were part of something that tends to happen every year with the NFL, and that's a team that goes from worst to first. The Houston Texans in 2022 were awful. they were one of the worst teams in the league, and it was not particularly close. But as bad as they were, they lucked into a good quarterback. They were able to they picked C.J. Stroud, and traditionally, any quarterback you draft from Ohio State tends to not pan out. But only takes one to break a trend, and for whatever reason, C.J. Stroud, he broke that trend. He has definitely changed the fortunes of this team, because for a while, for the longest time, this team was basically it had bad management, questionable coaching, and it kind of feels like it always kind of felt like they kept trying to get away with like subpar quarterback play. But C.J. Stroud, as here he is right here. Despite the Ohio State, the reputation of Ohio State quarterbacks, he did really well his rookie season. He had one of the best rookie seasons of anyone. I mean, just look at that quarterback rating over 100. Yet 23 TD passes with only 5 interceptions. That's not and over 4,000 yards. I mean, even with I know it's because it's a 17-game season. It's a little bit different, but let's give credit where credit's due. I mean, this guy took a team that had the second worst record in the entire NFL and took them to the playoffs. I mean, they didn't make it to the championship game, but I mean, last year was supposed to be like a rebuilding year. They were not supposed to win the division, but not only did they win the division, no, they actually made some hay in the playoffs. That's not nothing. And I guess now the question is, was this rookie season a fluke, or is he going to have what people in the NFL called a sophomore slump? Now, if you know anything about the NFL, the sophomore slump is a real thing. I mean, I've seen it happen time and time again with promising rookie quarterbacks. Probably one of the best examples. There's Robert Griffin III from when 2012. He had a stellar rookie season that then just fell off a cliff, and it's just one of those things where the NFL defenses do catch up to other players. Doesn't matter how good they are in their rookie season. I mean, if you go back to the days, you go back to the days of like in the 80s and the 70s and 80s. It was Jeff George was supposed to be was supposed to be like a can't miss quarterback, and I guess the league catches up to them. And people would say, love to point out someone like Rick Meyer. That's probably digging in too deep to NFL talent. But what happened was defenses figure other opposing quarterbacks out, and if those opposing quarterbacks they don't adjust, or they have a low ceiling, then they're not going to do well. They are going to struggle, and we have to wait and see if C.J. Stroud is capable enough of dealing with NFL defenses, that they're not going to take them lightly anymore. You cannot. He's not going to sneak up on anyone. So how is he going to respond? We don't know. But I certainly have my opinions. I'll save them for my video. But I am certainly, Texans are interesting to watch. But another team that is worth chatting about, let me bring that up, is it does kind of pain me to talk about the Jaguars, because it's just ever since 2022, I've kind of always I've always picked them as being one of those teams that could, if they I always feel like they're on the cusp. They are ready to compete. I mean, ever since they drafted Trevor Lawrence, And then Trayvon Walker. I've just I keep getting suckered into thinking that they're about to take a big step, but every year. I mean, last year they had no excuses. I mean, I know that because of what happened with Urban Meyer, who I contend is probably one of the worst coaching hires in the history of the NFL. That was 2 years ago. You can't blame Urban Meyer anymore. This team has talent. I mean, look, you have Trayvon Walker, you have Caleb Johnson, and then you have Brandon Sheriff leading that offensive line. I mean, some of these guys are Pro Bowlers, Trey Flowers, but at the end of the day, none of this matters is if Trevor Lawrence does not up his game, and he was so dominant in college with Clemson. He was so good, but if you look at his stats last year and you compare them to someone like C.J. Stroud, I mean, it's pretty pathetic. The team around him wasn't as good. I would argue that CJ had far better receivers helping him out, but this is not none of this is impressive. I mean, there's no excuse for to be throwing 14 interceptions after only throwing 8 the previous year. I mean, he got hurt later towards the season, but the team around Lawrence, I mean, it's not great, but it should be good enough to, make some hay. I mean, it's not like the AFC South is completely devoid of. Not like the AFC South is being dominated by anyone, and yeah, I mean, I can't give a pass to the Jaguars anymore. I mean, I keep picking them as though, because even like the year Urban Meyer was hired, they had the number 1 overall pick. They had like $88 million in cap space. They had a chance to essentially, build a roster from scratch. They could have gotten all the best free agents. They could have drafted the best picks. And they could have established, and it also, the AFC South was wide open to build. I mean, there's no Andrew Luck or Peyton Manning anymore to obstruct them, but they just keep underachieving. And usually when a team in the NFL underachieves, it's some of it's sometimes because of coaching. I mean, yeah, Urban Meyer was a terrible coach, and he definitely deserves the lion's share of the blame for why that team underachieved. But another thing that tends to happen is just the players aren't gelling for whatever the scheme isn't working. Maybe it's the fact that what Doug Peterson is asking Trevor Lawrence to do, it's not within his skill set. He just can't seem to manage. He just can't. It just doesn't work for him. I mean, because I don't doubt for a second it's different than what he ran at Clemson. I mean, the difference between the college and the NFL is, it's like they might as well be 2 different sports. That's how different they are. Sorry, drinking some water, but yeah, he has no excuses. I swear, if Trevor Lawrence, I know he got extended in the offseason, but if he underperforms this year, if he throws for less than 4,000 yards, or if he throws for less than 25 touchdown passes, then at that point, you got to step back and wonder, hey, is this working? I mean, he's a great quarterback. He's got the talent, but is Jacksonville really the team that's going to make the most out of him? I mean, I don't know that, and to be perfectly honest, I'm skeptical. I mean, I know Doug Peterson has won a Super Bowl with the Eagles, but this ain't the Eagles. So I guess the last team I want to talk a bit about in the AFC South is the Colts. Now last year was kind of it was kind of rough on the Colts, because they looked for, like, at least for when the season started, it looked like they'd found their quarterback. And yeah, Tony Richardson, he was off to a really good start. He has all the intangibles you want in a quarterback, but the thing is, he only played 4 games. He got hurt, which was awful. And but for these 4 games, it really did look like, they were on the right track. I mean, yeah, he didn't throw for a lot of touchdowns, but here's the thing. He didn't have to. He had Jonathan Taylor running the ball. He had a defense that could carry the team. And I'm convinced if he had stayed healthy, then yeah, I don't know. I don't know the Texans win the division if the Colts if the Colts are if Anthony Richards stays healthy. But yeah, I'd be very interested in seeing how well he bounces back. I know a season-ending injury on your rookie year is not a good tone to set, but players have come back from that before. I mean, Joe Burrow did that, and long before even Troy. Go back to the days of Troy Aikman, who had a terrible rookie season, and he came back, became one of the best to ever do it. So it can happen, and the Colts are one of the teams that I think are going to be the most intriguing. I don't know, and plus this division is pretty wide open. I mean, I would not look at the AFC South as a division in which there's one dominant team. So it really could be anyone's. That's going to be interesting to follow. So just want to switch gears. So kind of want to talk about my Baltimore Ravens. I live near Baltimore. It's they are always a team that seems to compete, but I got to be honest. Even with a team with someone like Nelson Aguilar, even with a team that has a former MVP and Lamar Jackson, I'm having a hard time getting excited about them this year. I really am. And look, hello Felipe, thanks for the chat. But yeah, if you're rooting for the Ravens, I mean, it's starting to feel like we are. It's starting to feel like they're kind of hitting a ceiling. I mean, they have decent players. They have Eddie Jackson. They also signed Derrick Henry, King Henry. Even though he might not be what he was in Tennessee, but you've got legitimate talent on this team. But I just every year it seems like they just underachieve at the worst time. I really want to see the Ravens do more because they always seem to struggle against the Steelers. They've also started struggling against the Bengals too because of Joe Burrow. And you know what? I can't, as much as I want them to take a step forward, it kind of feels like this is a team with a low floor but a low ceiling. I mean, yeah, they'll be good enough to make the playoffs, but they can never seem to make any headway. They don't make it to the AFC title game, and whenever they play a team like the Bengals or the Chiefs or even the Bills, they just can't match up. And they had some ugly losses in 2023. Like they lost games that they had no business losing, and I don't know if it's because of coaching. I mean, John Harbaugh's been there for decades now. He has won a Super Bowl, but I don't think he's the problem. It's just that I just don't think the team has enough on defense, and they don't have enough. Lamar Jackson on offense, he's great, but he can't win this on his own. He'll never be able to win it on his own. That's just not how football works. So, yeah, it is hard to. I hope I'm wrong when I say when I share my concerns about the Ravens. But yeah, I am anxious for my team, and that kind of brings me to the other team that has become, an unexpected force, and that's the Bengals. Now, here's something to note: as I'm recording, the Bengals have not signed Jamar Chase to a extension, but I checked social media. I check Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport. They say it's very likely that they're going to get an extension for Jamar Chase before the season begins. So I don't think they're going to let him go. And but it all comes back to Joe Burrow. I mean, this guy is on another level of special. I mean, this guy took the Cincinnati Bengals to the Super Bowl. Okay, let me say that again. He took the Cincinnati Bengals to the Super Bowl. if you followed the NFL in the 90s or even most of the 2000s, that's an insane statement to say with a straight face. But I can say it because, yeah, it's just he is that good. He's won more playoff games for the Bengals in the last 3 years than the Bengals have won in the last 3 decades. That's insane. And what makes this more remarkable is that he hasn't been healthy for like any season. In his rookie season, he got hurt. He got hurt. He couldn't finish the season. And last season he got hurt too. But in the seasons where he was healthy, look at this. He's throwing for nearly 4,500 yards, over 30 touchdown passes, only less than 15 interceptions. Yeah, he has taken some sacks, but look at that QB rating. Any QB rating over 100 means you are capable. And it's sad that his season got cut short last year, but in every season he's played in, Joe Burrow has started the season hurt, whether it's with a leg, an ankle, the knee, but this is the first off season where it does not appear that he's had any serious injuries that he sustained in training camp or anything like that. But one thing that does give me pause with respect to Joe Burrow is the injury he's recovering from, the injury he tried to play through last year. It's a wrist injury that no one has ever come back from. Not because it's devastating, but simply because it's rare. So we don't know what kind of shape Joe Burrow is going to be in. I mean, it used to be that injuries like ACLs and Achilles injuries, they would end your career. Same thing with shoulder injuries, especially for quarterbacks. But that's not the case. Medical science has advanced to a point where players can come back. Drew Brees came back from a torn rotator cuff, and look at all the injuries Ben Roethlisberger sustained. Yet he still managed to play as a high level well into his 30s. And it remains to be seen if this wrist injury, how serious it is, and whether or not it's going to affect Burrow. But the fact remains, if he goes into this season healthy, the Bengals are going to be a force to be reckoned with. And this isn't the same Bengals who you could usually pencil in to lose most of their games. This Burrow is legitimately good. This team around him, Zach Taylor with the coach, is legitimately good. So it is going to be really tough to see. It's going to be hard to predict. But yeah, they are a team. The only team they seem to struggle against is the Browns for whatever reason. I don't know why that works, but yeah, Burrow has made the Bengals a legitimate force in the AFC North. So it used to be, it was just Ravens or Steelers, flip a coin. And now this division is going to be very tight. Even Cleveland. Now remember, Cleveland, they spent most of their season with Deshaun Watson suspended. Now, I don't want to talk about his off-the-field stuff. I know Deshaun Watson. There's a lot of people have very strong opinions about Deshaun Watson. I do too, but I don't want to share them on this stream just because I don't want the algorithm to flag me for whatever reason. But I have not seen Deshaun Watson perform up to the contract that Cleveland gave, because they gave him $200+ million to be their quarterback to solve the situation, because Cleveland hasn't had a legit quarterback since Bernie Kosar. They want Deshaun to be that quarterback, and they believe that if they place their faith in him, and that the off-the-field stuff will fade. But he has not performed. He just hasn't. He's good. I mean, I remember how well he played in college with Clemson, but I've not seen him be the same quarterback that he was in Houston. And I know that he's in a good situation because the Browns have a really good defense. They had the number one defense in the league last year, and that defense carried them to a playoff berth. Yeah, they didn't do much in the playoff. They really couldn't do much. But that defense can complement a good offense. Browns could make some hay, but again, it's impossible to know whether Deshaun Watson's going to behave himself or whether or not he's going to upset everyone. So that kind of brings me to the Steelers. Now, well, here's one of my favorite stats about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay, so here's something that's going to blow your mind. The Pittsburgh Steelers have had 3 coaches. They've had only 3 coaches ever since Woodstock in 1968. Think about that for a second. Since 1968, this team has only had 3 coaches: Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin. That is a level of stability and consistency that, most NFL teams can only dream of. And the fact that, Mike Tomlin, he's been the Steelers coach since 2006. And he has, he kind of came into it. He came into a fortunate situation. He inherited Ben Roethlisberger. He inherited a good team, and the Steelers have one of the most well-run franchises in all of sports. But it's worth noting, that for the past few years, the Steelers they've always been around like an 8-8, 9-8 team. They have not been able to. They have not recovered from Ben Roethlisberger's retirement. They've tried to fill the quarterback spot and let the rest of the team carry it, but it just doesn't work. I mean, I think it was they had Kenny Pickett last year, and look, no offense to Kenny Pickett, but he was not gonna replace Ben Roethlisberger. He just wasn't. That's just not. He just wasn't that guy. And also, the rest of the team, they didn't have the steel curtain on defense. They didn't have like all-pro receivers, so they were not going to compete. But they are one of the best, most cohesive teams in the entire NFL. So that will get you into 500. But my hopes this year, thought this year is they appear to have recognized that. I mean, they are actually. They did actually try to find their quarterback. I mean, they weren't in a position to draft one because quarterbacks go too early in the draft these days. So they went for Justin Fields from Chicago, and they signed Russell Wilson after he got booted from Denver. Now, neither of these guys have fit well with their last teams. Russell Wilson just burned out in Denver. And Justin Fields he definitely had some moments in Chicago, but he never seemed to fit with their offensive scheme. To be fair, almost no quarterback fits Chicago's offensive scheme, but I don't know. Maybe I think one of these 2 guys is going to make it work. Right now, I think last I checked, Russell Wilson is penciled in as the starter, and he's got the most experience. He's been to multiple Super Bowls. He's won a Super Bowl. But he is not what he used to be. He is nowhere near what he was in Seattle when Seattle was going to the playoffs regularly. And he doesn't have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett like he had in Seattle. So, this will be a really good year to test how good Russell Wilson is. Was Denver the problem, or was he the problem? And if he loses his job to Justin Fields, then that's going to just confirm that, he wasn't as good as I think people thought. So, but even if, Russell Wilson doesn't pan out, they got Justin Fields waiting in the wings. He definitely had his moments in Chicago. But again, Chicago has been a quarterback wasteland since the 80s. So I would not, maybe Jay Cutler made it work for a while, but not nearly well enough. But Steelers, that's the team that I think we should keep an eye on. I do think they will have this will be the year where they either take a step or they will probably try to draft a quarterback. Now, I kind of wanted to wait to do this, but there's a lot of jokes I could make about the Jets right now because of what happened to Aaron Rodgers. But I'm going to maybe hold off because trust me, there are plenty of internet memes about how brief Aaron Rodgers' season with the Jets was last year. Like there are Led Zeppelin songs that lasted longer than Aaron Rodgers' season with the Jets last year, which is hilarious, but also kind of sad because the Jets were the hot pick of the season last year, and I didn't pick them for any number of reasons, but I have my opinions on Aaron Rodgers, both as a quarterback and guy off the field. It feels like the more he talks in public, the less likable he is, and it does kind of seem like with how well the Packers played last year that I don't know, it wasn't just Rodgers' talent, but I distinctly remember I'll never forget watching that Monday night game last year against the Bills. That was a game that was hyped up. I mean, that was like a mini step that had the feel of a playoff game on the first week of the season. I mean, I was excited to see the Jets. They haven't had a really good quarterback since Namath, and to see him go into that game, and I'll never forget. I was actually watching the Manning cast on ESPN2, and when he went down, I mean, I could see on Eli and Peyton's face, like, oh no, oh no, 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 no. They were like, that can't, no, 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 that cannot be a torn Achilles. But if you go back and watch that replay, it's still disturbing to watch. But some people laugh at it. But you could see, when his Achilles snapped, that was pretty much it for the Jet season. Zach Wilson wasn't going to win games for them. But so that makes does open the quite possibility. How is he going to be this year? I mean, he's 40 years old. How do you come back from a torn Achilles at that age? Now, again, as I mentioned earlier, a torn Achilles is not a career ender. I mean, it used to be. Like, if you tore your Achilles in the 80s, your career was over. There was just no way around it. Even in the 70s, if you tore your ACL, your career was over. No doubt about it. But it's different this year. If you tear your ACL, your season's over, but you can return the next year. I mean, Adrian Peterson even proved that you can come back from an ACL tear and become one of the best players in the league. So, but Adrian Peterson was a freak. We don't know if Aaron Rodgers, with his, shall we say, questionable views on health, will be able to do the same. Now, I don't want to talk about those health things because I'll let the Pat McAfees of the world do that. But yeah, I'll be very interested to see whether or not Rodgers can, whether or not he can come back from this, whether he can be what he needs to be for this team. Because this team does have some playmakers. Sauce Gardner was fantastic, had a fantastic rookie season last year. They've got a solid line, and they've got solid players on defense, like they have with Hassan Reddick, and they got one of the best kickers in the game, in Greg Zuerlein, Legatron as they call him. So I do think that they have a team, but if Rodgers isn't a team player, then they got a very low ceiling. So, and I don't know, with the Jets, a lot of things just they feel cursed, but it's hard to feel sorry for them when they make swings like this. So, but the team that I've always kind of rooted for sentimental reasons has been the Buffalo Bills. I mean, yeah, they've been really good since 2020. Since they got Josh Allen, this team has been one of the most. This team has been very consistent in terms of they have winning seasons, they make the playoffs, but but last year kind of showed they kind of took a step back. They lost some games last year that you can't be a contender and lose those games. I mean, I think losing against the Jets in the first week of the season last year, even after Aaron Rodgers got hurt, I think that set a very bad tone for the Bills, and I don't think they ever truly recovered. But honestly, I think they are still a good team. I think I even think I would go so far as to say they're a playoff team. But we've seen ever since 2021, really, that when they play a team like the Chiefs or the Bengals, like when they play against a team that has a really good quarterback, which you almost always do in the playoffs, they just can't measure up. I mean, they've come darn close. They came very close to beating the Chiefs. I think it was in 2021, but just, they couldn't get over the hump. And I will say I think they had some distractions last year. I think because of Diggs, and their defense was got hit with too many injuries. But every team has injuries in the NFL. It's not an excuse. And when the time came for them to play the best teams for the playoffs, they couldn't. They just couldn't. And you know what? They're a team that they could either take a big step back this season or a big step forward. Nothing in between. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I like the Bills. They make it to the playoffs. I'll certainly be rooting for them as long as they're not playing the Ravens. But I don't know. The Bills feel kind of like they're due for a step back because they got their quarterback, but I don't think they've done enough on defense. They don't have a Sauce Gardner. They don't have a Roquan Smith. They don't have a. They don't have. I mean, they just released Kareem Jackson. So I can't say that I'm confident in their ability. They'll keep up with teams, but will you beat them? That's another story. And then there are the Dolphins. So if you've seen my previous videos picking NFL teams, I've always been reluctant to pick the Dolphins. Not because they're not good, but because they're Tua Tagovailoa. He just could not stay healthy. Now some of that's not his faults. I mean, you can't predict injuries, but Tua's had injury problems going all the way back to his date time in Alabama. So I can't. It's not like people are unaware of his limitations, but he did. Last year was a banner year because this is the most important stat here, 17. He played all 17 games last year. Look at the seasons before that. He could not complete a season since he was drafted. He finally changed that last year. He didn't just play a full season. He threw for over 4,500 yards, threw for nearly 30 touchdown passes. And yeah, he took more sacks than usual, but he kept the interceptions down. He was able to he was efficient. He kept his team in games. I mean, I know these stats might be a bit skewed from that. I think they scored 70. They dropped nearly 70 points on the Broncos last year, but that last year was an encouraging sign that Tua can complete a season, and if he can stay healthy and develop good chemistry with Tyreek Hill. You know what? I don't think they may very well have the best offense in the NFL. Yeah, and that includes the Chiefs. So yeah, that's the AFC East has definitely gotten more interesting in recent years. And it used to be, the Patriots would always win it, have it wrapped up by by Christmas, but that's not the case anymore. They're rebuilding. They have, I think last I checked, Jacoby Brissett is their starting quarterback, and this is their first year without Bill Belichick. So I don't think many people are expecting much from the Patriots, but they're still the Patriots. They still have a great owner. They still have a balanced team. I do believe that at some point Drake May is going to take over, but I don't think it's going to be this season. So, and I'll do one more thing on the AFC. Let me just say this about the Broncos. I was fooled by I freely admit that I was wrong about the Broncos. when they traded for Russell Wilson, I genuinely believed that he would have the same success that Peyton Manning did. I totally underestimated how poorly at how many weaknesses there were on this team. Now, they can't say that they don't have the resources. I mean, the Walton family owns this team. They're one of the richest families on the planet. They have the money, but they have not been able to put the team together. They just haven't. So, but signing Sean Payton, I think that was a good move. But I think Sean Payton proved that that Russell Wilson, he's just because he won past Super Bowls, just because he had success with the Seahawks, doesn't mean that he gets a pass. So whether or not he was entirely the reason why the Broncos, failed as much as they did, that's hard for me to say. But I will say that this year is going to be interesting if they start Bo Nix, because Bo Nix is one of those. I don't know. I might be dating myself here when I say he kind of reminds me of one of the old run and shoot quarterbacks. Now, if you don't know what that is, the run and shoot was kind of like a gimmicky college offense from the 90s that would allowed quarterbacks to put up insane numbers, but it was one of those offenses that just did not translate to the NFL. I mean, some teams tried. I mean, the Lions tried it, the Oilers tried it, and yeah, they were good. They were quote unquote good for a while, but as soon as they made it to the playoffs, they got smoked. I mean, people will blame the Oilers blame the run and shoot for why they gave up a 30-point lead to the Bills one year in the wild card game. And yeah, but the run and shoot from the 90s is not the same as what college offenses run these days. Bo Nix came from a more spread offense and the fact that he was a prolific passer and a really pass happy team in the Oregon Ducks. I think you can't look at the stats alone and say he's going to be the next great quarterback. But the fact that the Broncos have it feels like they have said he is going to be their starter. That leads me to believe that they've seen something enough in him to say, okay, you know what? Even though he came from this gimmicky offense, I think he can get it done. And if the Broncos end up winning more games than they did last year, then you know what? They're going to be set up for success in the future. That doesn't mean they're going to compete with the Chiefs. In fact, I'm pretty sure that there's not one team in this division that can compete with the Chiefs. The Raiders, I think the best quarterback on their roster is Gardner Minshew. Now, I love Minshew. I got caught up in Minshew mania as much as anyone, but the man, they don't have a team that can. The Raiders are a ways away from competing. They just are. They are a team that needs to rebuild. They've been kind of they've been faltering in terms of their quarterback play for a long time since they got rid of Derek Carr. And I mean, with all due respect to Gardner Minshew, this team they might be playing for a top draft pick by the end of the season. Chargers, I would love it if they could compete with the Chiefs, but and I know they kind of swung for the fences when they brought in Jim Harbaugh as their new coach, but I'm still not sold. I mean, I like Justin Herbert, but he kind of regressed last year. He just could not elevate his game. Now, to be fair, the team didn't really improve around him. I mean, that's the one thing about the Chargers that has kept me from picking them is they never seem to swing for the fences. They always tend to be really conservative with respect to signing players and getting big team. I mean, yeah, they're lucky they got Herbert, but other than Herbert, they've let too many players go. And they don't have a dominant receiver threat. They don't have any dominant defensive players. I mean, aside from Justin Herbert, can you name another player on this team? I mean, let's look at the roster here for a sec. Yeah, they got Joe Alt from the draft, but yeah, none of these players here are, with all due respect, I mean, these aren't these aren't household names. You know, yeah, Derwin James, but he's become too much of a journeyman. Khalil Mack is not what he used to be, and there's not a whole lot else here. I mean, Sante Samuels Jr. He has not he's not been a playmaker that his father was. So, yeah, it's hard to really say that this team is going to is ready to compete. Jim Harbaugh is a great coach. He will get this team to play hard, but I don't think there's a scenario where they can measure up against. Maybe they'll keep it close, but yeah, the Chiefs are the best team in the AFC, and it's very hard. It's their conference to lose. Now the NFC is a little more interesting, and I gotta take a big drink of water because I'm about to talk about the NFC East. So brace yourself, people. Oh boy. I wish that was whiskey. Okay. Now, the reason why talking about the NFC East is such a pain is because this division makes no sense. I swear. This division has no logic to it at all. Yeah, for the past 20 years, this division has confounded everyone, myself included. I mean, yeah, in that time, we've had Super Bowl winners. The Giants won the Super Bowl twice in the past 20 years. The Eagles won it in 2017 with Nick Foles. But every year, what we think is going to happen doesn't happen. And what we think won't happen happens. I mean, this division is absolutely nuts. Now, I know Dallas is probably the most valuable franchise in the NFL. I know Jerry Jones is one of the most recognizable owners in all of sports. But even if you're a Cowboys fan, you got to admit that last year, them winning the division did not feel triumphant. I don't know if that's the right word. Because that loss, the way they played against the Packers in the wild card round, that was abysmal. The Cowboys had absolutely no excuse to play that poorly in the playoffs. I mean, I know they have a history of choking in the playoffs, but how can you, it's one thing if it happens one year. I mean, even the best teams have choked in the playoffs before. But it happens every single year for the Cowboys, like every year. I mean, if it's not against at least against the 49ers, I mean, they were in the game till the end. Against the Packers last year, that game was over by halftime. Like, I'll never forget seeing Stephen A. Smith tweeting some video of him just trying hard not to laugh. But, man, that was the only reason the Dallas Cowboys won the division last year was because the Eagles collapsed. It's not because they were great. It's because, they happened to be good at a time when the rest of the division was faltering. And I think that the fact that they won the division obscures how many holes they had. Now, I know if there are any Dallas fans watching, I apologize in advance, but Dallas's approach to the reason why they've been able to, stay competitive, it's not because they're good. It's because Jerry Jones has always tried to his solution to every problem is to throw talent at it. There's no question that the Dallas Cowboys have a very talented roster with very talented players. And that's been Jerry Jones's approach for like over 20 years now. Just throw as much talent as you can on a roster and throw that talent against the other team and make sure the talent wins the game. Now, sometimes that's enough to win some regular season games, but in the playoffs, I think it was Jimmy Johnson who was either Jimmy Johnson or Mike Ditka once said, "Great players don't win games, good teams win games." And as many talented players as this team, like Tavon Diggs, they don't play. There's no cohesive team to the Cowboys. They constantly play for themselves and not for each other. And I mean, it really, really showed in the playoffs last year. The Packers were a bunch of did not have a lot of household names. They were not the most talented team, but they were a better team overall. And I mean, it showed how poorly Dallas performed. And on top of that, Dallas this is a lame duck year for Coach Mike McCarthy. He doesn't have a contract afterwards. And, Dak Prescott, he hasn't been extended yet. So you've got a lame duck coach, lame duck quarterback. If for one instance things start to go sideways, it could not go well for Dallas. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to have a terrible season, but, for 20 years, we've seen Dallas's approach falter. Throw talent at the problem, let the talent win the games. At some point, something's got to give. It might not give this year, but it kind of feels like, the Dallas Cowboys are kind of due. So, but then there are the Eagles. Now, let me just say this about the Eagles. I have Eagles fans in my family. I know people who are legit Eagles fans. And let me just say this. Eagles fans are a different kind of they're a special kind of breed of fans. I mean, there are sports fans, there are hardcore fans, and then there are Eagles fans. And Eagles fans are their passion is something I fear and admire. And being related to some, it really is something. Now, that being said, last year was painful for Eagles fans because, at least for the first half or so of the season, the Eagles were one of the best teams in the NFC. They were they were 10-1 at one point. It looked like they were going to win the division for the back-to-back for the first time in 20 years. But right around November, that's when things started going bad. And watching the Eagles just falter. I mean, every week it seems like they would find ways to lose, or they would just, play down to their opponents. And you cannot play down to your opponents in the NFL. You just can't. And Jalen Hurts, I don't blame him for the collapse, although, trust me, a lot of Eagles fans probably have. But it does kind of feel like towards the end of the season last year, teams started figuring him out. They started figuring that offense out. I mean, if you just look at the stats compared to, the year before, there was definitely it's this stat right here that concerns me the most, the turnovers. Jalen Hurts took care of the ball for his first 3 years in Philly. But last year, this right here, this was the stat that I think played a role in their downfall. Now, there was also problems. They also had problems on defense that did not help. But let's not. But I think it's clear that the league caught up to the Eagles last year, and they did not adapt. I mean, I remember last year that if you were to just pack the box, stop their rushing attack, and force Jalen Hurts to throw the ball, you know what? You could force him into making mistakes. Because, this stat right here is the clearest sign that, hey, we know how to stop them. You just commit to stopping the run, and if you force Jalen Hurts to beat you with his arm, he's no Pat Mahomes. He's not able to win games on his own. It's just not his style. So, yeah, it is concerning. Now, a lot has happened in the offseason. They've actually signed they've signed Saquon Barkley from the Giants. They got Cooper DeJean in the draft. This is a team that they always seem to reload on talent every offseason. And yeah, they lost Jason Kelce, but I don't know. I'm still not sold. I do think the Eagles are going to be better, but we have to figure out if that collapse last year was a fluke. And until we know that, yeah, it's going to be Philly fans are going to be anxious. And when Philly fans get anxious, weird things happen. Now, for the Giants, again, I got some Giants fans in my family. And last year was a disappointment, to say the very least. I do think that this might be the last year for Daniel Jones. And we have to, it's kind of a matter of, was Brian Daboll, was the season they had before where they made the playoffs, where Brian Daboll really showed that, he can get his team playing hard. Was that a fluke? I don't know. But this year is going to be kind of it's a make or break year. If they don't make the playoffs this year, then yeah, I'm pretty sure Daniel Jones is going to be gone. And if they bottom out, if they finish last in the division this year, Brian Daboll might be gone too. So that's going to be an interesting thing to watch, because they do have this. They are kind of lacking, because they let Saquon Barkley go, and I don't have the stats in front of me, but whenever Daniel Jones has had to play without Saquon Barkley, he is like a below average quarterback on his best day. So that has a lot of the Giants fans in my family nervous. So, and I don't know. The Giants are a team that I don't have a lot of faith in, simply because, for the same reason I don't have much faith in the Cowboys, because they got lame duck. They have quarterbacks who might be out. They have coaches who might be out. And the Eagles are probably in a better position than either of them, but this is the NFC East. That never works. And then there's Washington. Now, I have not actually given much credence to Washington at all. This is a team that has they've had they have won the division a couple times in the past decade, but it's always been very much a fluke. It's because they always had the burden of having one of the worst owners in all of sports. Like, for 20 years, they were owned by Dan Snyder, who probably the worst owner to ever own a sports team. I mean, I know certain franchises would argue with me on that, but they had such a horrible ownership team with so many off the field scandals. They went through so many coaches. I mean, I told you the one year they had 3 coaches, and again, the Steelers, they've had only 3 coaches since Woodstock, which is insane. But last year I did not think Washington was going to. They couldn't do much, because they got a new owner right around July, which is when after the draft, after free agency, they had no. The new ownership, Josh Harris. It's Josh Harris. They did not have time to change the team much when they bought the team. They were essentially stuck with what they inherited, and needless to say, the team finished horribly. Only won 4 games, and actually, I think their record last year, 4-13. That record was better than was deceptive. They were worse than that. I would argue they were actually worse than I wouldn't say they were as bad as the Panthers, but they did not deserve to win 4 games last year. That's how bad they were. This offseason, though, this team has been completely overhauled. Like, they didn't just get a new owner. They got a new coach. They got a new general manager, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, new facilities. Like, this team might as well be an expansion team with how much turnover there's been. So and plus they had the number 2 overall pick, and they picked Jaden Daniels, who was probably one of the best prospects they've had, best quarterback prospects they had since Robert Griffin III. And I followed this team somewhat during the offseason, and Jaden Daniels kind of strikes me as he has the talent of Robert Griffin III, but he does not have the ego. Robert Griffin III's ego was not good for the long term. Yeah, he had that one great rookie year in 2012, but man, he he could not get out of his own way. And Jaden Daniels strikes me as someone who he's much more of a team first guy and not more of a me first guy. And that, like I said before, teams win games, not players. So maybe that's exactly what Washington needs. They have Dan Quinn as the coach, guy who has made it to a Super Bowl, and this team actually might have. It's weird because in terms of just stability, Washington might have the most stable situation of any team in the NFC East. Now, I'm not going to go so far as to say they're going to win, but again, this is the NFC East. I have zero. This division makes no sense. No one can predict it. No team has won the division back-to-back since the Eagles did it in 2004. After that, it fluctuated between all these teams, and it was nuts. So, yeah, this division's always going to be an absolute mess. So, do not expect that to change in 2024. Trust me, there's a lot more I could say about it, but I'm going to try to. Yeah, I'm not gonna. But by contrast, I think if there's one division that's going to be the most interesting to watch, probably the most fascinating, it's this one, the NFC North. This, I think, is the division that's going to be the most fun to watch. Now, sadly, can't say that about the Vikings. They lost. They lost JJ. They let Kirk Cousins go in a trade in the offseason. They thought they had his replacement in JJ McCarthy, but then McCarthy got injured, and yeah, they have the best receiver in football with Justin Jefferson, but yeah, I don't see them without McCarthy. It's either going to be Nick Mullins or Jaron Hall or Sam Darnold. Look at they have all these quarterbacks, but yeah, I don't think Sam Darnold's going to be good enough. There's a reason why he's been a journeyman. Yeah, they have Justin Jefferson. They have some. They have some playmakers on. They have some playmakers on offense. They signed Stephon Gilmore, but yeah, I'm sorry. I just don't see the Vikings. If they were in another division, they might have had a chance, but in the Packers, when you have the Packers, Bears, and Lions, I don't see that. Now the Packers, they're another team. They're kind of like the Steelers in that they are one of the most stable and well-run organizations in football. They have been for decades. Not because they've had some coaching turnover, and I know Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre kind of left the team on bad terms, but their roster is probably one of the most balanced in terms of the talent, and they groomed their replacement with they had their quarterback waiting with Jordan Love, and you know what? I know it seems to suck for teams that always struggle to find a quarterback, but these are good stats. I mean, yeah, they're not as good as Jalen Hurts. They weren't as good as even Trevor Lawrence's best year. But he wasn't even as good as C.J. Stroud. But this right here, the ratio 32 touchdowns to 11 interceptions, and a 96 decent QBR. You know what? This will take you far. But again, it's really not just Jordan Love who makes this team great. It's really just it's just how balanced this team is. I mean, yeah, you don't recognize a lot of these names, but they play together as a really cohesive unit. And it's because of that they are able to be as good as they were. It showed, they have the opposite approach of the Dallas Cowboys. Don't just rely on talent, rely on fit. Do they fit the scheme? Do they fit what the coaches want to do? And they have a system, they stick to it, and it works. So yeah, I think the fact that they beat up on the Cowboys was that shows that their approach can work, but they need more talent. At some point, they're going to need some extra talent if they're going to get through the rest of the NFC, because even in their own division, both the Bears and the Lions, I think, have more talent than the Packers. The Bears especially. Now, I was foolish enough to believe that the Bears were a Super Bowl contender team a few years ago because I really thought Justin Fields was that good. But yeah, I'll own it. I did not. I overestimated how well this team would gel. So I will say that they did luck them. The reason they did luck out in terms of getting the best quarterback in a generation. Like, they did not earn the number one overall pick. They traded Carolina for it, and Carolina just happened to have the worst year they've had in decades. And now they just kind of they backed into the number one overall pick, and now they have Caleb Williams. He is by far the best quarterback that we've had in a generation. And let me organize this. They got Keenan Allen. They got DJ Moore. They got Greg Stroman at corner. But everyone is most interested in seeing how well Caleb Williams is going to do in his rookie season. Now, I did watch some of his college games at USC, and to say that his numbers are a bit deceptive because USC basically didn't have a defense. Like, Caleb Williams was essentially forced to win every game that USC won because the defense, they might as well have been a Pop Warner team. That's how bad they were. So, yeah, the defense for the Bears is going to be better, but we got to wonder, can those skills translate to the NFL? Again, we've seen players. We have Trevor Lawrence's rookie year did not go particularly well, but that was Urban Meyer's fault. Well, we've seen other players like Ryan Tannehill. He struggled early on, but got better later. And then you have Robert Griffin III. He succeeded early, but then struggled later on. So I think Caleb is actually going to be. I think he's going to be good, but he's going to have to go through some growing pains, and then and against a team like the Lions. Now, you've been watching football at all for as long if you've been watching football since I think the 1980s, you probably know the Lions' reputation. This team might be one of the most moribund teams in the history of sports. But last year, 2023, the Detroit Lions finally broke through. They didn't just make the playoffs. They won not one, but 2 playoff games. I mean, I know some teams think that's nothing, but the last time before last year, the last time the Lions won a playoff game was 1992. People were still had pagers in 1992. Email wasn't even a thing in 1992. AOL wasn't a thing in 1992. I was alive in 1992. I was in freaking grade school. That's how long it's been since the Lions were a good team. And yet here they are. And here they were last year, making it all the way to the NFC Championship game. And they were in a position to win that game. And I'm not going to lie, I was rooting for them. I would have loved to see the Lions play the Chiefs, not just because the Lions beat the Chiefs in the season last year. But, I think they are a sentimental favorite among many, just because, they have been so moribund and so bad for so long. It makes me wonder. Now I just can't help but wonder: was last year a fluke? I also don't think so. I think Dan Campbell has this team playing with a new mentality. This is not the same old Lions. They've resurrected Jared Goff's career. They have one of the best defensive players in the game in Aiden Hutchinson, he's kind of. I would say he's one of the best defensive players in the league right now. And last year, I think, he got the team he rallied that defense. And I swear, if they had just made I'm just thinking back to the plays in that NFC Championship game. The Lions were in a position to win that game, but I think they just got a little overly aggressive, and they let the 49ers claw back in, and they just kind of got on their heels and never got away. It was frustrating, but the fact that they were in the NFC Championship game to begin with was that alone is worth is worthy of note. Now, in terms of whether they're good enough, they've made enough moves in the offseason to get better. Hard to say. I'll talk a bit about that in my video, but yeah, this team is definitely on the rise. They definitely have the talent, the depth, and the coaching to do better. Will they? And that's going to be part of what makes this division so much fun to watch. I am legitimately excited to keep an eye on all of these teams. Sorry, Minnesota, but yeah, these three are going to be making a lot of headlines. So, as opposed to the NFC South, which I would say it's going to be it's not going to be nearly as exciting as the NFC North or the NFC East. But right now, like the team that I think has the least going for it is the Panthers. Now, I know since Dan Snyder left the NFL, David Tepper has kind of become the de facto worst owner. He's not quite on the same level as Dan Snyder, but this team, after trading for Bryce Young and then trading away out of the number 1 overall pick, which would have landed them Caleb Williams, yeah, it's good. This team is definitely going to start feeling their shortcomings. I mean, it's hard to forget back in 2015, they were 15-1, and they made it to the Super Bowl. And were it not for Peyton Manning, they would have won. It's nuts to think that how far this team has fallen. But right now, I'm just kind of I do kind of worry about that they've ruined Bryce Young. I mean, yeah, he's an undersized quarterback. He came into quite possibly the worst situation possible. Like, these are terrible stats for a rookie, even for a rookie. Yeah, he did play the game. He did make it through the season, but these are really bad numbers. Now, they're not as bad as like Peyton Manning's rookie year. I mean, Peyton Manning had a terrible rookie season. But for someone who was the number 1 overall pick, this was pretty distressing. So he's got to turn it around. He's got a new coach, Dave Canales, but there's not much else talent. There's not a lot of talent on this team. I mean, I don't see much. I don't want to write any team off. I know it's every given Sunday, but yeah, there's not a whole lot on this team that gets anyone excited. And but right now, I think the two teams that probably are in a better position are the Bucs and the Saints. Now, I like the Saints. They are usually they've been, even when they lost Sean Payton, they've been competitive, but at the same time, I think they are relying too much on Derek Carr. Now, I don't think enough people appreciate that Derek Carr has been in the league for like over a decade now, and he is not what he used to be. I mean, he was legitimately good for a while. He definitely had some really solid years in Vegas. Like, he was even on an MVP track at one point before he got injured. But I mean, last year, this is good. But again, his best years have been behind him, and the injuries have just been piling up. He just can't seem to. He just cannot seem to stay healthy, and he kind of reminds me a bit of Donovan McNabb when he was with the Eagles, where he had. Oh, hey Thunder, I'm just talking a little football. So I don't know if you watch the NFL. I've made it to, I'm talking about the New Orleans Saints now. And how I think Derek Carr, his best years might be behind him, but I wouldn't write him off completely. I do believe that he might be able to, he can still have a good year, but the team around him has got to step up. Chris Olave is a great receiver, did not step up. And they signed Chase Young in the offseason from San Francisco. This guy, played in the Super Bowl, and he played well in the Super Bowl, but, he's kind of underperformed since he's been drafted. So they have the team, but I don't know. The Saints, the Saints are pretty much on the same level as the Bucks, maybe a little bit below. And I like the Bucks. I think Baker Mayfield is getting I'm glad he got another chance with Tampa, because he got run out of town real fast in Cleveland, way too fast. I mean, I don't like how that ended, because Baker, he helped turn the Browns around. His biggest problem was he kept trying to play through injury, and eventually some quarterbacks can do that. Brett Favre did that, but Baker Mayfield is no Brett Favre. So, but the good thing is, he did come on pretty strong towards the end of the season last year. They made it to the playoffs. They beat the Eagles in the playoffs, although the Eagles were already kind of on their way out. So that's not too surprising, but his stats weren't bad. He played every game, threw it for over 4,000 yards. This is a good TD to interception ratio. I mean, it's not, his rating's over 90. I mean, it's not as good as even CJ Stroud was better. But he's got a team that has like Mike Evans and Goodson. He's definitely has weapons that other teams wish they had. So Chris Godwin. Yeah, these two here are definitely going to help carry this team. And in terms of other talent, though, I mean, the defense, it's not like their Super Bowl year when they had like Ndamukong Suh, but I do think they have more on offense than the Saints have. Defense, I don't know. It's going to be interesting seeing these two battle it out. For the Falcons, I did not like that they drafted Michael Penix. Nothing against Michael Penix. I think he's I love that he was able to overcome the injuries he did. But honestly, I feel like that was a wasted draft pick. The only reason they picked him is because they would have picked pretty much every quarterback above him. And if they're going to go into this season with, I like Kirk Cousins, but he's coming off of the worst injury he's ever had. And Michael Penix Jr. that was a wasted draft pick. If they had drafted someone on offense to help Kirk Cousins, I would feel a lot better about this team. But Kirk, and this is the first year he's coming back from a horrible injury, and he doesn't have anywhere near the weapons he had in Minnesota. Hell, he had better weapons in Washington. And yeah, I just don't see enough on this team to lead me to believe that they're going to compete. But, I've been wrong before. Drake London's good, but there's not a whole lot of other playmakers on this team. So I guess, this Michael Penix pick might come back to haunt them. So that's just my opinion. I might be proven wrong. This video might age very poorly, but time will tell. Last but not least, the NFC West. No surprise, the 49ers, I put them there. If in terms of the top three teams in the league, they're definitely up there. They also they're like the anti-Cowboys in that they don't just draft for talent. They draft for they have a scheme with Kyle Shanahan. They stick to that scheme, and they only bring in players that fit that scheme, fit it well. And because of that, they can make someone like Brock Purdy a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback. They can make Deebo Samuels, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle some of the best offensive weapons in the game. And their defense, they got multiple Pro Bowlers on defense. There's really they also have I wasn't going to bring up any. The one thing that I do, a day before I started this stream, I found out they gave Brandon Ayuk the contract. He was holding out, but they really, really need to sign Trent Williams to an extension. Now, Trent Williams is the best left tackle in the game. He's probably, I would argue, he's the best left tackle in a decade. And I swear, if San Francisco does not resign this guy, and if he's not playing in week 1, then the 49ers are in trouble. They need this their left tackle. And this guy is the best. I think he was like number 6 of the top 100 players in the league last year. That's how good he was. You cannot go into a season without him. I know he wants more guaranteed money. I mean, he's 36. I know he's not really on the he's in the tail end of his career, but seriously, San Francisco, if they don't sign him, then this team is not going to win consistently. But they have plenty of other, they have talent. What they don't have is what they haven't been able to do is they haven't been able to overcome teams like the Chiefs, and were it not for the Lions kind of shot themselves in the foot in the NFC Championship game. Like they've struggled against the Eagles, they've struggled against the Lions, and they can't beat the Chiefs. Couldn't beat them in 2019, couldn't beat them last year, and they were close. But when it comes to closing out games, their defense has a nasty tendency to just give up big plays at the worst possible time, or fail to make big plays themselves. But that being said, they were one of the best seeds in the league for a reason. They've been one of the most consistent teams since 2019, and the division, they're one of the best teams in the conference, but their division is not a pushover. I was surprised at how well the Rams did last year with now since Aaron Donald is retired. And I mean, without Aaron Donald, this team is going to have problems. But they still have Matthew Stafford. They still have Puka Nacua. They have Cooper Kupp too, although he was injured. This is a team that could give the 49ers some serious competition. So I am not going to say that the division is going to be a cakewalk. I mean, I'm pretty sure, the Chiefs aren't going to have much of an issue with their division, but the 49ers, they might have an issue with theirs simply because the Rams are still legit. They still have a good quarterback. They still have some of the best better offensive weapons. So, and even Seattle surprised me last year with how well they did with Geno Smith as quarterback. And in the offseason this year, they've also, they still have like DK. They have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, and they also have a new coach now in Mike McDonald after Pete Carroll has been coaching them for a long time. So, but in terms of their quarterbacks, Geno is definitely going to be interesting to watch. His numbers are deceptively good. I mean, people don't think. I think he flew under the radar last year just because he's bounced around a lot. But yeah, these aren't Pro Bowl caliber numbers. I mean, especially when compared to his 2022 season. But he was hurt for part of last year. That didn't help. But the fact that look at this ratio right here, touchdown to interception, this is the most important. This is what he was able to do with his team, and that was enough to. They were close to the playoffs, and I think this year he's not going to have to do everything. I do think they actually traded for Sam Howell from Washington over the offseason. I think if you put Sam Howell behind a good offensive line, and I do think they have a better offensive line than Washington did, he might actually, he could be a quarterback of the future. So this is a team that definitely has talent. This is a team that can that can compete, but it's San Francisco's still the best team in the division, plain and simple. There's just no way around it. Cardinals, they actually overachieved last year. I mean, I actually had them picked to have the worst record of the league last year, and they didn't even have the worst. They weren't even the worst in the conference. But I'm still not entirely sure about Kyler Murray. Yeah, this team did play well with Jonathan Gannon as their new coach, and even though Murray got injured, he's never played a full season. When he has played, he has played pretty well. Again, look at it's this ratio right here that seems to work, and maybe it's because just like the style of the offense wasn't didn't match his skills, but I don't know. I think last year showed he and the rest of the team. They could come together. They could play better than they were better than the sum of their parts, and they call football the ultimate team sport. If a team plays cohesively, they can beat a team that's more talented. But like last year, they actually beat the Cowboys early in the season when the Cowboys were one of the hottest teams. So that says that they might not have the talent just yet, but they definitely have the structure. So it's in terms of the NFC, I mean, I still think, it's the 49ers, it's the Packers, it's the Lions. And yeah, I guess I'll throw the Eagles in there as well. Although, again, I would never assume anything with the NFC East. I guess the question is there any team in the NFC that can beat the Chiefs? The answer is yes, actually. The Lions beat the Chiefs in the regular season last year, and they beat the Chiefs in the preseason this year. So, yeah, they can. And in terms of the AFC, yeah, I actually think there are more teams in the AFC that can beat the Chiefs than the NFC. And I think most of those teams are either in the AFC North or in the AFC East. Like, one matchup that I would be very, very curious about is if the Jets got a chance to play the Chiefs, because if you look at their schedule, let me see if I can get their schedule up here. Let's see their full schedule, because I think they're pretty sure they're going to be favored in every game. So this right here, this game against Cincinnati, this is going to be a good preview, because the Bengals they're one of the few teams with a winning record against the Chiefs. And if the Chiefs lose this game, they're going to push the panic button. But in terms of everyone else, yeah, I don't see any other team they could measure up. Yeah, this 49ers are going to want to beat them, but yeah, Super Bowl last year, pretty sure that's still bitter. And they're going to want to play the Bills. The Bills always play them tough, but the Chiefs, they have a winning record against the Bills. I think the Bills beat them once a couple of years ago, but yeah, this is going to be tough. I think it's going to be just as tough as the Bengals game, but I think the Chiefs would be favored here. Yeah, the Steelers, that could be a tough game. That's a Christmas game too, so that's on Netflix as well. So I have opinions about that I won't share, but yeah, if they ever play if they play the Jets in the playoffs with Aaron Rodgers, that could be quite a game. So I'm going to I think I'll take the window capture off, and just focus a little bit more on the end game, because I do want to kind of bring this stream to a close. I've been talking football for almost 2 hours now, and believe me, I could talk about football for 4 hours until my voice gives out. But I do want to save some of this for my upcoming video where I do my picks and predictions. Like in that video, I won't just pick who's going to win the Super Bowl. I will pick each division winner, and I will pick who I believe how I believe the playoffs will play out. So if you want to see, now remember, I've picked two of the last 3 Super Bowl winners. So maybe it'll carry more weight this time. Who knows? Because if my videos age better, then that's good. That's good for the algorithm. But in terms of now, one thing I do before I go off, I do want to talk a little fantasy, because one of the things that is probably going to happen before the big kickoff on Thursday is everyone's going to start their fantasy league. One thing I would here are some players that I would avoid. One of them is Aaron Rodgers, not just because he's not good, but because of injuries. Like whenever I pick a player in fantasy, I try to go by which player is like more likely to be available. So Derek Carr, I wouldn't have him on your board. Jonathan Taylor, he's kind of coming off an injury. I wouldn't really have him on your board. I think some sleeper picks would be Austin Eckler with Washington, Terry McLaurin also with Washington. He's a really underrated player. Quarterback, I would actually think Jalen Hurts, because he does so much damage running the ball and throwing the ball, that I think he, and maybe even Saquon Barkley if you want a feature back. Now on defense, usually I would always try to pick Aaron Donald, but he retired. So I would say Sauce Gardner if you're going to pick one really good defensive player from the Jets. I think, and then with the Ravens, Kyle Hamilton, one of the best defensive backs in the game. And in terms of defensive line, I say the pick that I definitely that I picked is Montez Sweat from the Bears. Montez Sweat from the Bears, he's really been a leader of that defense. He's probably cheaper to get than I know a lot of people would just try to get Myles Garrett from the Browns, but I think Sweat might have a better season just because the Bears are going to have so much firepower on offense. And I know people are going to probably be tempted to take Tyreek Hill, but I think unless you have the number 1 overall pick, I would try to build a more balanced team. In terms of quarterback, same thing. It's tempted to pick Mahomes, but I think Tua might put up better numbers, even if Mahomes wins more games. And in terms of and if you want to get like a receiver that's cheaper, maybe go with Mike Evans from the Bucks, because he's a veteran. He's been very consistent. And maybe for let's see, for the line, can't go wrong with Trent Williams. And any team that has a quarterback with a quick release, so pretty much anyone on the Chiefs or anyone, even the Falcons, because Kirk Cousins gets rid of the ball real quickly. I would go that route. And there's a bunch of other fantasy stuff that would probably I could probably talk for another 2 hours about that I'd rather not. But the one player that I'm mixed about is probably Dak Prescott. Oh, Thunder, I'm doing well. Just excited about football season. Just counting down. We're less than a week, just 1 week away. So, and if you're a fantasy player, Dak Prescott is probably not. I would not pick him for a quarterback, but I would pick CeeDee Lamb if you need a receiver. And I would also not pick Daniel Jones from. I take that back just a bit, because Daniel Jones will have Malik Neighbors, But the fact is, if he doesn't have a good running game, I don't know if how big an impact Neighbors is going to have. So I don't know. That'd be tricky. I mean, if I had a chance to draft Neighbors, I might, but I just don't see anyone on the Giants' offensive line that can protect Daniel Jones long enough. So yeah, fantasy, you do kind of have to take into account how certain positions affect other positions, and if a team has a quarterback that throws for 400 yards a game, but it's just because they're playing from behind all the time, yeah, that's kind of that's a red flag. But yeah, in fantasy, that doesn't matter. In terms of tight ends, just Travis Kelce, that's pretty much all you need. And there's ever since Rob Gronkowski left, there have not been really dominant tight ends compared to what they used to have. So yeah, and trust me, I do not want to talk about the Kelsey Taylor Swift thing. That is beyond the purview. There are too many. I have too many Swifties in my family to comment on that. But yeah, I'm sure it'll make the news if Taylor Swift shows up at a few Chiefs games. And even if she doesn't show up, that'll probably make the news even bigger. I know how celebrity speculation is these days, especially when it comes to football players. So, but yeah, it's going to be this Thursday. It'll be this Thursday that the NFL officially begins, with a Friday game on a bullshit streaming service that is going to limit people's ability to watch it. Although, maybe, since this involves Philly and I live near Philly, maybe I'll get the game. But if I don't, yeah, what are you going to do? But I guess until then, it's just a matter of preparing and bracing yourself. And plus, there's some college football on this tonight and tomorrow to tide us over. But yeah, I am, in the words of Hank Williams Jr., I am ready for some football. I am so ready. And I'm sure I'll have more to say as the season progresses. I don't know if I'll do another live stream about it. Kind of depends on if there's any demand for it. And I'll definitely do one before the Super Bowl. Just like I did last year. I do want to make that a regular thing. But that'll be the good time to see if any of my predictions have panned out, or if something weird has happened. Because every year the NFL always has a weird, worst to first type story. I mean, last year was the Texans. I mean, in the years past, we've had teams like the Jaguars go from worst to first. The Lions have gone from worst to first. It's there've been times when the Chiefs went from worst to first when just before Andy Reid showed up. So yeah, it happens all the time in the league. So even if it's not your year, any given Sunday, people. We're in the midst of another dynasty with the Chiefs, but who knows how this year will pan out? We'll see. I'll be sure to. I have my theories and my predictions. I'll share them in my video, which again, either Tuesday or Wednesday. It depends on how much work I can get done and how many distractions I can avoid. Which no promises on that. So that, I think I'm going to call it now. I think I've had enough of the stream and to cover my predictions and my expectations and my excitement. I was going to try to talk some comics before things talking out, but I don't know if that's going to fit the stream now that I've just spent almost 2 hours talking about the NFL. But there's plenty more going on in terms of comics. I don't know if I'll be able to do any reviews this week or in the coming weeks. It's been just a matter. It hasn't been a matter of just a matter of time. But if that changes, I'll be sure to share something with everyone. But yeah, so everyone who's joined, Thunder, Felipe, thanks for chatting. I know I didn't get a lot of chatters here, but yeah, this was fun. I appreciate it, and yeah. So stay tuned. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And yeah, till next time, everyone, take care and stay safe.